So my husband and I are obsessed with these breadsticks that we get from a carryout. It's like an hour away from us though. They are twisty and buttery and parmesan-y and delicious. Well, I found a recipe for them and now I'm going to try to make them at home and surprise him. Let's try it out. Into my mixing bowl went 1 cup of warm water and 1 packet of dry yeast. I went ahead and whisked that up and let it set for 5 to 10 minutes or until it looks foamy. It'll be something like that. After that, you add a teaspoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of sugar or honey, whatever you have, and then 2 tablespoons of olive oil. After that's all in the mixing bowl, I use my stand mixer. You could mix this by hand if you wanted to. I just have this and it makes things so much simpler. I put my guard on it also so flour didn't spray all over the kitchen. Once you get your mixing blade on, which I highly recommend putting the mixing blade before you put your guard on, then all it needs is flour. The recipe calls for 2.5 to 3 cups of flour. I used 2.5 cups mainly because that's how much was left in my tub and I didn't want to go get more. But the dough turned out great, so I would definitely go with 2.5 cups of flour. And you're supposed to add it 1/2 cup to a time. So I think 1/2 cup, let it incorporate, another 1/2 cup, let it incorporate. I just slowly added the 2.5 cups. Slowly but surely. And if you knead it by hand, you have to knead it on a floured surface. That's next. But again, I use the stand mixer, so I just use a dough hook. Once your dough is well incorporated, it's going to look something like this. You're going to knead it 3 to 4 minutes with a stand mixer or 6 to 8 minutes by hand. It'll look like that when you're done. Then you're going to grease up a bowl or use a well-oiled bowl. I use lard. You can use whatever you want. Olive oil, butter, even nonstick spray I'm sure will work. We use lard. I actually made it a couple years ago, so I'm really excited for all these purposes that we have for it around the house. Well, in the kitchen. Then the dough goes into the oiled bowl and you're going to cover it for 1 hour or until it doubles in size. It took over an hour because my kitchen is cold. So keep that in mind when you're trying to make these with your supper. You're going to punch it down. That was a lot more satisfying than I thought it was going to be. And then divide it into 10 to 12 equal portions. I got 12 pieces. I went ahead and I just quartered it and then I wedged it. Were they perfect? No. But they were about all the same size and that's all that matters so that bake time doesn't vary between breadsticks. Once you have all 12, you're going to roll them out into a rope about 12 inches long. And then I rolled mine flat. That's totally optional. The recipe didn't call for it. But I wanted the twist to be twisty. Now in retrospect, that made the twists come alive on the baking sheet. And I really struggled to keep them twisty. As you can see, I'm going to booger with that pan, after I put every single one on it. But you just keep repeating the same process. Make it into a little rope like the snake in Play-Doh. And then you're going to roll it flat, which you don't have to if you don't want to. But again, I wanted the twisty shape. And then put it on the baking sheet. Once you mess with them enough, they really did eventually end up staying twisty. It just took a little bit of messing with them and pressing the ends down, and they would keep their shape. And the baking sheet I used was parchment lined. I highly recommend using the parchment lined pan. This is what they looked like and then that's what all 12 looked like. Gonna go ahead and preheat the oven to 400 degrees. And then I'm gonna get started on my toppings since they have to rise for 15 more minutes. I called my husband in to grate the Parmesan because I was working on dinner at the same time, and he is a professional cheese grater. Not really, but that's okay. You want a half a cup of Parm or a mountain. We prefer a mountain. And then I melted 3 tablespoons of butter, and you're going to add some garlic to it. You can use 2 cloves of minced garlic, 2 scoops of garlic, or some garlic powder. I use garlic because that's what we have. And then you're going to throw those in the oven once your oven's hot. So the recipe said 12 minutes. 12 minutes made really stiff breadsticks. So my second batch, I cut it down to 8 minutes, and they were really soft and chewy. They all tasted good, but we just prefer the soft and chewy ones. So once they were fresh out of the oven, I brushed them down with that garlic butter mixture, making sure to get all of the curves and swirls and whatnot so that they were all nice and coated so that that Parmesan would stick to them and give them that really great taste. You can see they're sliding all over. That's the parchment paper. I'm telling you, I use it for all my cookies. Anything that bakes on a baking sheet, it gets a piece of parchment paper. And then I added a pinch of salt, and you can add Italian seasoning as well. I had the basil out, and I totally forgot to put some on. And then you're going to top them with Parmesan and serve them to your family. I used homemade pizza sauce to dip them in. Let's ask the hubs. Make again, babe?
Oh, yeah.
Make again, Mason?
Every night.